Time is the most valuable thing a man can spend. This ancient Stoic principle reminds us that wasting energy on someone who doesn't value us is one of the greatest mistakes we can make. If you're seeing signs of disinterest, it's time to step back, reassess, and, if necessary, walk away. In this video, I'll break down the red flags that signal when you're better off moving on. Pay attention to these signs. They could save you from weeks, months, or even years of frustration. Watch until the end, like, subscribe, and share your experiences in the comments. Let's dive in. Chapter 1: Closed Replies. When someone is genuinely interested in you, conversations flow effortlessly. There's a natural rhythm to the exchange, filled with curiosity, laughter, and a genuine desire to know more about each other. On the flip side, when her responses are consistently short, disinterested, or feel like they're designed to keep you at arm's length, it's a clear sign that something is off. Consider this scenario. You ask, "How was your day?" and she responds with a flat "good," offering no follow-up question or elaboration. On the surface, it might seem insignificant. After all, people have off days. But when this becomes the norm, it speaks volumes. Closed replies are like closed doors. They signal a lack of willingness to engage, connect, or invest emotionally. Conversations that feel forced or one-sided aren't just exhausting, they're a sign that her level of interest may not align with yours. Stoicism teaches us to observe reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. This principle is crucial when interpreting her communication. If her responses lack warmth, enthusiasm, or depth, it's an indication that her interest doesn't match yours. Resist the temptation to overanalyze her words or search for hidden meanings where there are none. Actions and communication patterns often reveal the truth far more clearly than intentions or excuses. It's easy to fall into the trap of rationalizing closed replies. Maybe she's busy, you tell yourself, or perhaps she's just not a talkative person. While these may occasionally be valid explanations, they shouldn't become your go-to justifications. A person who cares will make an effort to keep the connection alive, even on their busiest days. They'll ask questions, share their thoughts, and show a genuine desire to engage with you. Communication is a two-way street, and if you're the only one trying to pave the way, it's time to reevaluate. When faced with closed replies, avoid the urge to push harder for her attention or overcompensate by sharing more of yourself in the hopes of drawing her out. This approach not only drains your energy, but can also come across as desperation, further widening the emotional gap between you. Instead, take a step back and assess the situation with clarity and objectivity. Accept that her behavior may not be a reflection of your worth, but rather of her priorities and feelings. It's important to remember that you deserve a connection where communication feels natural and mutual. Pursuing someone who offers closed replies is like trying to water a plant that doesn't want to grow. Your efforts are better spent nurturing relationships that thrive on reciprocity and respect. By accepting the reality of the situation, you free yourself from the emotional burden of chasing after someone who isn't fully present. The Stoic approach is to remain calm, composed, and grounded. Don't allow her lack of engagement to undermine your sense of self-worth. Instead, view her closed replies as valuable information, guiding you toward relationships that are more aligned with your desires and values. True connections are built on open communication, mutual interest, and shared effort. Anything less is a disservice to yourself and your time. Ultimately, closed replies are a gift in disguise. They reveal what might otherwise remain hidden beneath the surface, saving you from investing in a connection that lacks genuine potential. Embrace this truth with gratitude and use it as an opportunity to redirect your energy toward people and pursuits that truly matter. In doing so, you honor your worth and cultivate a life filled with deeper, more meaningful relationships. Chapter 2: Always busy. Everyone has a busy life, filled with commitments, responsibilities, and unexpected tasks. It's normal for people to juggle multiple priorities, but here's the truth: people make time for things and people that truly matter to them. If she frequently says she's too busy, cancels plans at the last minute, or avoids committing to specific dates, it's more than just a packed schedule. It's a pattern, and patterns tell a story that's often more honest than words. Her words may imply one thing, but her actions reveal the truth. If she's consistently unavailable, even for small moments of connection, it's a clear signal that her priorities lie elsewhere. In relationships, actions always speak louder than words. You deserve someone who doesn't just talk about valuing your time, but actively demonstrates it by making space for you in her life. Someone who genuinely cares will create time, not excuses. Continuing to chase someone who chronically deprioritizes you comes at a cost. You're not only wasting your time, but also sending a powerful message to yourself and to her that you're willing to accept being an afterthought. Over time, this pattern chips away at your self-worth, even if you don't notice it immediately. You may start to doubt yourself, wondering if you're asking for too much when, in reality, all you want is the basic respect of being prioritized. The Stoic approach to this situation is not to beg for attention or seek validation where it isn't freely given. Instead, step back, maintain your dignity, and redirect your energy to areas of your life that enrich and empower you. Think of your time and effort as valuable currency. When you give it to someone who doesn't truly appreciate it, you're essentially devaluing yourself. A person who genuinely cares will find a way to be present, even during life's busiest seasons. They'll prioritize you because they want to, and not because they feel obligated. Whether it's a quick phone call, a thoughtful message, or carving out time in a packed schedule, their actions will show you how much they care. So, when faced with someone who always seems too busy, resist the urge to make excuses for their behavior. Don't convince yourself that maybe next time will be different, or that she's just going through a tough time. Those who care will show it, even in small ways: a quick call, a heartfelt text, or a moment shared despite a hectic day. People who are interested in you will ensure that you feel valued, not like an option they can fit in when it's convenient. Your worth isn't measured by someone else's convenience. By refusing to accept a secondary role in someone's life, you affirm your own value and open yourself up to connections where mutual respect and priority are foundational. Redirect your focus to the people and pursuits that honor your time, rather than drain it. The energy you spend trying to convince someone of your worth is far better spent on improving yourself, nurturing your passions, and building relationships with those who truly value you. True strength lies in walking away from situations where you are undervalued. The Stoic way is not to hold on to resentment or bitterness, but to view the situation with clarity and objectivity. Understand that her lack of commitment is not a reflection of your worth, but of her priorities. Let her go without anger or regret, knowing that by doing so, you're choosing to honor yourself. Walking away is not a sign of defeat, it's a declaration of your self-respect and a powerful step toward creating a life filled with genuine and meaningful connections. By letting go, you also make space for someone who will value you as much as you value them. Life is too short to chase after people who don't recognize your worth. Instead, spend your time on those who do, and on building a life that reflects the respect and care you deserve. Chapter 3. Breadcrumbing. Breadcrumbing is one of the most frustrating and emotionally draining behaviors you can encounter in the dating world. It's when someone gives you just enough attention to keep you engaged, but never truly commits to anything meaningful. A sporadic text here, a flirtatious comment there, or an occasional show of interest might give you hope that things will progress. However, these small gestures are not signs of genuine interest. They're tactics designed to keep you hanging on without any intention of moving the relationship forward. At its core, breadcrumbing is a power play. The person doling out the breadcrumbs wants to keep you within reach, maintaining your interest and availability without offering you the emotional connection or clarity you deserve. This behavior is not only manipulative, but also deeply disrespectful to your time and emotional well-being. And yet, it can be incredibly tempting to stay, hoping that those crumbs will eventually lead to something more substantial. From a Stoic perspective, breadcrumbing represents a distraction, a diversion from what truly matters in life. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, would remind us to focus on what is within our control. You cannot control whether someone chooses to engage with you meaningfully, but you can control how you respond to their behavior. The question you must ask yourself is this interaction contributing to your growth, happiness, or purpose? The truth is, breadcrumbing thrives on uncertainty. The person breadcrumbing you is counting on your hope and your willingness to interpret their sporadic attention as a sign of potential. They create just enough ambiguity to keep you second-guessing, which can make you feel stuck in a cycle of overanalyzing their actions and waiting for their next move. But in reality, there's nothing to decode. Their lack of consistent effort and genuine investment speaks volumes. Walking away from a breadcrumbing situation isn't a sign of defeat, it's an act of self-respect. It's an acknowledgement that you deserve more than minimal effort and half-hearted attention. It's a decision to prioritize your time, energy, and emotional health over someone who is unwilling to meet you halfway. While it might feel painful in the moment, it's also liberating to break free from the hold of someone who isn't genuinely invested in you. Consider this: every moment you spend chasing breadcrumbs is a moment you could be using to focus on yourself. The Stoics believed that life's greatest purpose lies in cultivating virtue, wisdom, and inner strength. Instead of waiting for someone else to validate your worth, use that energy to invest in your own growth. Dive into your passions, build meaningful friendships, and pursue goals that align with your values. The more you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, the less appealing those breadcrumbs will seem. It's important to recognize the emotional toll breadcrumbing can take. The constant highs and lows of receiving attention only to have it taken away can create a sense of dependency and insecurity. Over time, this pattern can chip away at your self-esteem, making you feel like you're not enough or that you have to work harder to win someone's approval. But remember, the problem isn't you, it's the person who chooses to engage in such manipulative behavior. In some cases, breadcrumbing isn't even intentional. The person may be unsure about their own feelings, emotionally unavailable, or simply unaware of the impact their actions are having on you. While this might explain their behavior, it doesn't excuse it. You are not responsible for waiting around while someone figures out their emotions. Your time and energy are valuable, and you have every right to set boundaries that protect your well-being. Walking away from a breadcrumbing situation is not just about ending a toxic dynamic, it's about reclaiming your power. When you choose to let go, you send a message to yourself and the world that you will not settle for anything less than genuine connection and mutual respect. This act of self-respect is deeply empowering and paves the way for healthier relationships in the future. The Stoics often emphasized the importance of aligning our actions with our values. If honesty, respect, and reciprocity are important to you, then staying in a breadcrumbing situation contradicts those values. By walking away, you're not only protecting yourself, but also staying true to the principles that define who you are. Imagine the peace and freedom that come with letting go of someone who isn't fully invested in you. Instead of waiting for the next breadcrumb, you can focus on building a life that brings you joy and fulfillment. You can open yourself up to connections that are real, meaningful, and aligned with your goals. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. In the context of breadcrumbing, this means shifting your focus from what the other person is doing to what you can control: your reactions, your choices, and your path forward. By choosing to walk away, you're exercising this power and finding strength in your own autonomy. In the end, leaving a breadcrumbing situation is a win for your self-worth. It's a declaration that you will not settle for less than you deserve and that you value yourself enough to seek out relationships that uplift and inspire you. It's not about rejecting the other person, it's about choosing yourself. And that is a decision that will always lead to growth, fulfillment, and a deeper sense of purpose. Chapter 4: The No Initiation. Healthy relationships thrive on mutual effort. When two people are equally invested, the connection feels natural and balanced. But if you find yourself always being the one to initiate conversations, plan dates, or check in, it's a glaring red flag. This kind of imbalance suggests that while she may enjoy the attention, she isn't genuinely interested in reciprocating it. In a dynamic where one person does all the initiating, the relationship becomes one-sided. You're the one making the effort to keep things moving forward while she passively receives. Over time, this can leave you feeling undervalued and emotionally drained. It's important to recognize this pattern early because it's not just about who texts first or plans a date, it's a reflection of how much she values the connection. The Stoics teach us the value of self-respect and emotional independence. If you find yourself doing all the work, it's essential to step back and evaluate. Are you holding on to the hope that she'll eventually match your effort? Are you convincing yourself that her lack of initiation is due to busyness or shyness? These rationalizations can keep you stuck in a cycle of over-investing in someone who isn't equally invested in you. When you stop initiating, you create space for clarity. Her response, or lack of one, will speak volumes. If she notices your absence and steps up to reconnect, it's a sign of genuine interest. It shows that she values the relationship enough to put in the effort when prompted. On the other hand, if she doesn't reach out or shows indifference, it's a clear indicator of where her priorities lie. This realization can be difficult to accept, especially if you've invested significant time and emotional energy into pursuing her. But as Marcus Aurelius reminds us, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. In this context, being a good man means respecting yourself enough to walk away from situations where your efforts aren't valued. No initiation on her part also indicates a lack of emotional reciprocity. In a balanced relationship, both people should feel excited to connect, share, and grow together. When one person consistently avoids taking the lead, it suggests either a lack of interest or an unwillingness to invest emotionally. Neither of these is a foundation for a fulfilling relationship. Consider the impact this dynamic has on your self-esteem. Constantly chasing someone who doesn't reciprocate can make you question your worth. It might lead you to believe that you're not interesting or attractive enough when, in reality, her lack of effort has little to do with you and everything to do with her readiness or interest. The Stoics emphasized focusing on what you can control. You can't control her actions, but you can control how you respond. If she isn't making an effort, the healthiest response is to redirect your energy toward yourself and those who genuinely value your presence. This isn't about playing games or testing her, it's about protecting your emotional well-being and ensuring that your time and energy are spent wisely. Walking away from someone who doesn't initiate is not a loss, it's a gain in self-respect. When you set boundaries and refuse to accept a one-sided dynamic, you demonstrate that your time and effort are valuable. This can even shift the power dynamic, as people often don't realize what they've taken for granted until it's gone. However, don't rely on this outcome. Your decision to step back should be rooted in self-respect, not in hoping for a change. It's also worth noting that her lack of initiation doesn't necessarily mean she's a bad person. She might be dealing with personal issues, emotional unavailability, or uncertainty about her feelings. While these factors may explain her behavior, they don't excuse it. You're not responsible for fixing someone else's emotional state, especially at the expense of your own happiness. When you stop initiating and she doesn't notice or respond, it's a blessing in disguise. It saves you from investing further in a relationship that was never meant to be. As Epictetus wisely said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In this case, your reaction should be to accept the truth of the situation and move forward with grace and dignity. By focusing on yourself and stepping back from one-sided dynamics, you open the door to connections that are truly mutual. Imagine how liberating it feels to be with someone who actively wants to talk to you, plan with you, and check in on you. That's the kind of relationship worth pursuing, one where both parties are equally invested in creating something meaningful. Ultimately, recognizing a lack of initiation is about valuing your time, energy, and emotional health. It's about refusing to settle for crumbs when you deserve a full meal. And it's about understanding that true connections are built on mutual effort, not on one person carrying the weight of the relationship. So, if she's not initiating, take it as a sign. Pull back, observe her actions, and let them guide your next steps. Whether she steps up or fades away, you'll have clarity, and with clarity comes the freedom to pursue what truly aligns with your worth and values. Chapter 5. Talking about other guys. When a woman frequently brings up other men, be it her ex, a new crush, or even a celebrity she admires, it's one of the clearest indicators that her focus isn't on you. While occasional mentions of others are normal, a constant stream of comparisons or discussions about other men can't be ignored. It's a subtle yet potent way of signaling where her attention and emotional energy truly lie. At first, you might rationalize this behavior. Perhaps she's just being open, sharing her past, or casually expressing her interests. But over time, the pattern becomes unmistakable. If her conversations are peppered with anecdotes about her ex's charming traits, her coworkers' wit, or her favorite actor's charisma, it's not just idle chatter, it's a window into her priorities. This behavior suggests that, consciously or unconsciously, she doesn't see you as the primary romantic figure in her life. The Stoics emphasize the importance of clarity and detachment in our relationships. Instead of allowing jealousy or insecurity to cloud your judgment, view her words as valuable feedback. They reveal not just her thoughts, but also her emotional availability, or lack thereof. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In this context, her focus on other men is an external event. Your reaction to it, however, is within your control. It's easy to fall into the trap of competing with the men she mentions, especially if her words spark feelings of inadequacy. You may feel compelled to outshine her ex, emulate the coworker she admires, or embody traits she seems to idealize. But this path leads to frustration and diminishes your sense of self-worth. True Stoic wisdom lies in recognizing that your value isn't determined by how you compare to others, but by your authenticity and character. Consistently hearing about other men can also erode the foundation of mutual respect that's essential in any potential relationship. It places you in a secondary role, forcing you to play the listener while her attention drifts elsewhere. This dynamic creates an imbalance where you're emotionally investing while she's mentally preoccupied. The Stoics teach us to avoid placing our happiness in the hands of others, and this scenario is a prime example of why. If she's consistently bringing up other men, it's worth asking yourself, why am I tolerating this? Often, it's because of hope, the hope that she'll eventually see your worth or shift her focus toward you. But hope, when misplaced, can trap us in situations that don't serve our growth. Instead of clinging to the possibility of change, accept the reality of her actions. If she valued you as a romantic prospect, her attention and energy would reflect that. Recognizing this behavior doesn't mean you need to confront her aggressively or demand explanations. Instead, approach the situation with calm detachment. Observe her actions, listen to her words, and let them guide your decisions. If her behavior leaves you feeling undervalued or secondary, it's a clear sign that the connection isn't serving your best interests. Walking away from someone who fixates on others is not a sign of weakness, but of self-respect. You deserve a partner who sees you as the center of their attention, not as a placeholder or fallback. As Epictetus wisely stated, know, first, who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly. This means embracing your worth and refusing to settle for a dynamic that undermines it. It's also important to recognize that her behavior may not stem from malicious intent. She might be unaware of how her words affect you, or she may simply be processing her own feelings. However, her intentions don't negate the impact on your emotional well-being. Compassion for her struggles can coexist with firm boundaries that protect your sense of self. From a Stoic perspective, every challenge is an opportunity for growth. If her focus on other men prompts you to reevaluate the relationship, that's a step toward greater clarity and self-awareness. Use this experience to deepen your understanding of what you want in a partner and what behaviors you're unwilling to tolerate. This self-knowledge will serve you well in future connections, helping you build relationships grounded in mutual respect and appreciation. Ultimately, talking about other men is more than just a conversational habit, it's a reflection of her priorities and emotional availability. By acknowledging this behavior and responding with wisdom and self-respect, you take control of the situation. Whether you choose to address her directly, step back, or walk away entirely, your actions will be rooted in strength and clarity. The lesson here is simple but profound. You deserve someone who chooses you unequivocally. If her words and actions consistently point elsewhere, have the courage to let go. In doing so, you free yourself to seek a connection where your presence is valued and your worth is recognized. As the Stoics teach, true freedom lies in aligning your actions with your values, and there's nothing more valuable than living a life guided by self-respect and purpose. Chapter 6: Indifference. Indifference is one of the clearest yet most frequently ignored red flags in any relationship. It manifests subtly at first, a lack of enthusiasm in her voice, fleeting eye contact, or her body language leaning away from you. Over time, this detachment becomes more pronounced. She may give short, uninterested responses, fail to ask about your life, or contribute little to conversations. These signs indicate a lack of emotional or mental engagement, and no matter how hard you try, you cannot force someone to care. In Stoicism, Epictetus reminds us that our happiness should never rest on the approval or affection of others. Indifference from someone you care about can feel like rejection, but it's essential to recognize that her disengagement says more about her internal state than it does about your worth. Perhaps she's preoccupied with personal challenges, uncertain about her feelings, or simply not invested in the relationship. Whatever the reason, indifference is a powerful signal that it's time to reevaluate your efforts. When someone is indifferent, they're not just withholding affection, they're also denying you the reciprocal energy and attention that healthy relationships require. You may find yourself overcompensating, trying harder to spark her interest or bridge the emotional gap. This imbalance often leads to frustration and resentment as your emotional investment goes unacknowledged or unreturned. The harder you chase, the further she drifts, reinforcing a cycle that erodes your self-esteem. The Stoics teach us to focus on what we can control, our actions, thoughts, and responses. If she's indifferent to your presence, it's not within your power to change her feelings. However, you can choose how to respond. Instead of clinging to the hope that her attitude will shift, consider what this detachment reveals about the relationship's potential. A genuine connection is built on mutual care, respect, and enthusiasm, qualities that cannot thrive in an atmosphere of indifference. Indifference is also a test of self-respect. Do you value yourself enough to walk away from someone who doesn't recognize your worth? It can be tempting to stay, hoping that persistence will eventually win her over. But the Stoic perspective encourages us to avoid attaching our sense of fulfillment to external validation. By accepting her disinterest and stepping back, you demonstrate both strength and self-awareness. This act of letting go is not a loss, it's a decision to prioritize your own well-being and invest in relationships where your efforts are appreciated. It's also important to recognize that indifference doesn't necessarily stem from malice or ill intent. She may not even realize the extent of her disengagement, or she could be grappling with her own uncertainties. However, understanding her reasons doesn't mean you should tolerate a dynamic that leaves you feeling undervalued. Compassion for her situation can coexist with firm boundaries that protect your emotional health. Walking away from indifference is not about giving up, it's about embracing your power to choose. You deserve a partner who is present, invested, and excited to share their life with you. When you release someone who doesn't meet these standards, you make room for the connections that do. This decision requires courage, but it's a vital step toward living a life aligned with your values and goals. The process of letting go can be painful, but it's also an opportunity for growth. Each experience of unreciprocated effort teaches you more about what you want and deserve in a relationship. It strengthens your ability to recognize red flags early and to act decisively when faced with situations that don't serve your best interests. Over time, this clarity and confidence will guide you toward healthier, more fulfilling connections. As Epictetus wisely observed, man is disturbed not by things, but by the views he takes of them. Indifference is not a reflection of your value, but a mirror of the other person's priorities and emotional availability. By reframing this experience, you can see it not as a rejection, but as a redirection, an opportunity to seek out relationships that bring mutual joy and meaning. Ultimately, responding to indifference with grace and decisiveness is one of the most empowering choices you can make. It frees you from the futile pursuit of affection and redirects your energy toward building a life filled with purpose, passion, and genuine connections. You owe it to yourself to walk away from anyone who treats your presence as optional and to embrace the freedom that comes with choosing yourself. Chapter 7: Avoiding Physical Touch and Intimacy. Physical touch and closeness are integral aspects of building a genuine romantic connection. From subtle gestures like a brush of the hand to more overt signs of affection, these moments create a sense of warmth, trust, and emotional intimacy. When someone consistently avoids these gestures, it signals that the romantic spark may not be mutual. If she leans away when you're near, avoids sitting close, or insists on group settings over one-on-one interactions, it's a clear indication that she may not feel comfortable moving forward in a romantic capacity. This behavior isn't something to take personally or to push against. Stoicism teaches us to respect the natural boundaries that people set, both for their sake and ours. Boundaries are not obstacles, they are reflections of where someone stands emotionally. Ignoring or attempting to override these boundaries only leads to further frustration and misalignment. Instead, observing her actions without judgment allows you to understand her perspective and make an informed decision about the future of the relationship. It's important to recognize that avoiding physical touch isn't always about you. Sometimes, the reasons lie within her own emotional state or past experiences. She could be dealing with trust issues, unresolved trauma, or a lack of readiness for intimacy. These factors may have little to do with your behavior or intentions. However, it's not your role to solve or fix these challenges unless she invites you to be part of that process. Forcing closeness or ignoring her reluctance would only erode the foundation of mutual respect that any healthy relationship requires. By stepping back and respecting her boundaries, you give her the space to assess her own feelings and determine what she truly wants. This approach demonstrates emotional maturity, self-control, and an understanding of the Stoic principle that we can only control our own actions, not the reactions of others. It's natural to feel disappointed or even confused by her behavior, especially if you've invested time and energy into the relationship. However, dwelling on these feelings or trying to force an outcome only prolongs the discomfort for both parties. Instead, use this opportunity to focus on your own values and goals. Ask yourself if this relationship truly aligns with what you want. A connection without mutual affection and physical intimacy often lacks the depth needed for a long-term bond. While some people may grow into affection over time, you shouldn't wait indefinitely for someone to change. The Stoics believed in the importance of living in harmony with nature and accepting things as they are, not as we wish them to be. When you respect her distance, you also communicate self-respect. You show that you value yourself enough not to chase after someone who isn't equally invested. This action not only protects your emotional well-being, but also signals strength and independence, qualities that are universally attractive. Paradoxically, stepping back often leads to clarity. If she realizes that she values your presence, she may reevaluate her behavior and take steps to bridge the gap. If she doesn't, you have your answer, and you're free to move on with dignity intact. Avoiding physical touch and intimacy is one of the most telling signs of disinterest, but it's also an opportunity to practice self-awareness and detachment. Accepting her behavior without resentment allows you to let go of unrealistic expectations and focus on building connections where mutual affection and respect are present. Whether this means stepping away or continuing to engage on her terms, the key is to act with integrity and remain true to your values. Ultimately, the Stoic approach reminds us that every relationship, whether it flourishes or fades, is a chance to grow and learn. If someone's actions consistently show reluctance or avoidance, it's not a reflection of your worth, but of their readiness or compatibility with you. By recognizing these signs and responding with grace, you reclaim your power and open the door to relationships that align with your true desires and needs. Opportunity to refocus your attention on relationships that align with your goals and values. The Stoics believed in facing reality head-on, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. If you're seeing these signs, it's time to make the tough but necessary decision to walk away. Doing so isn't about giving up, it's about preserving your dignity, valuing your time, and staying true to your self-worth. Not everyone will reciprocate your feelings, and that's okay. What matters is how you respond. By recognizing these signs and choosing to move on, you're prioritizing your happiness and creating space for someone who genuinely values you. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear how you've handled similar situations. Remember, walking away isn't a loss. It's a step toward something better.